Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar. Nintendo doesn't like you. In fact, Nintendo actually despises you as far as I've gathered in the last several years. Now, listen, before anybody says, listen, I have loved Nintendo. I'm a huge Nintendo supporter. I will always be glad, by the way, okay, when anybody asks to dig this sad boy out, all right? The Wii U, all right? If anybody tells me I don't support Nintendo, I own one of these, okay? I'm one of the 15 people that own the Wii U. So you can't tell me that I haven't liked Nintendo in forever, all right? God damn, there's some dust in the air. Jesus. But, ladies and gentlemen, Nintendo has always made some really, really dumb decisions at the expense of the people that prop up the company where it's at. Now, before I get a bunch of Nintendo inbreds coming into the comment section and going like, but Muda, Nintendo doesn't need no fans. They have enough money to keep the lights on till 2077. Listen, the point of a business isn't to keep lights on to a certain date. The point of a business is to keep lights on indefinitely and to build more lights to keep on. If you don't understand that, leave the fucking parents' basement and come to reality, all right? This is how it works. If you think the people who have bought Nintendo games didn't make Nintendo where it's at, you are sorely mistaken. These companies rely the fuck out of the fans to keep them where they're at, okay? Because when it comes to a company like Nintendo, they don't have fallbacks. They don't have Microsoft money. They don't have giant cloud server farms to basically offset the losses that they face on their video game divisions. They're not Sony that has a larger established player base with actual quality being pumped into basically everything. Sony isn't lazy, and Microsoft has stupid money. Nintendo literally has a bunch of reserves, which most Japanese companies do if you ever really look into it, but those reserves aren't going to stick around forever, especially if they keep making dumb decisions. So let's just cross this right off where it needs to be. Now, the reason I'm making this video is I'm somebody that watches Smash tournaments, right? Melee tournaments, sometimes the new stuff. I'm not a good Melee player, but there are some crazy good players that it's just a treat to watch them. Now, unless you have been living under a rock, which, hey, that must be a blissful goddamn rock in this case, we live in a pandemic, okay? The pandemic does not allow us to host tournaments or do anything at all. All right, we are locked in our houses. We are socially distant. It's unfortunately how the world is till a foreseeable future. I don't know when that is. Who knows? But we have to try adjusting as much as we can. The way we play Melee together, okay, through the internet on a game that doesn't have any internet, connectivity within it, is we use emulators like Dolphin. Okay, and we use something called NetPlay, which is a common feature seen in multiple emulators that allow us to connect one emulator through the other with the internet and allow us to actually play these games. The way that NetPlay works, all right, and this is going to be the very layman's way, is a lot of these games have two-player modes in them, right, where you're supposed to sit right next to each other, or sometimes they have a system link mode within them. The system link mode or the two-player mode actually allows you to play with people, as if they were sitting right next to you. The way that you do it is you go on something like NetPlay, which is a common feature in most emulators. It allows you to connect two emulators to each other through the internet. Now, when you do this, what you're effectively doing in the game is you're basically taking that other emulator that you've connected between each other, right? Let's say two people are connected. What the emulator is doing is putting one player as player 2 and one as player 1. So it's a very complicated set of things that has to happen. And what it does is it allows us to play these games over the internet. And this is the only way in a pandemic we're going to be able to play Super Smash Bros. Melee at all. Now, this is using something called Slippi. If you don't know what Slippi is, I'm going to show you real quick. Slippi is a NetPlay tool that actually you can download right now, okay? You can go right now to their page, download it for Windows or Mac OS or Linux, whatever it is. By the way, big thanks for the Linux release, guys. I actually really appreciate that as a Linux user. Experience the new NetPlay. What they do is they effectively have built their own netcode. They've effectively, patched a bunch of things up. They have matchmaking features. They've effectively modernized Melee multiplayer for today's day and age, for 2020. In fact, it's so goddamn decent. I'm actually going to show you something that's blown my mind. If you go to their if you go to their tournament section, you can actually literally watch an entire preview of a match. match, you can then load this replay onto Dolphin and watch it within the game itself. It's actually really fucking cool. Nintendo decided to actually get rid of this. Nintendo decided to fucking yeet this out of existence, and they issued a fucking cease and desist. The Big House is heartbroken to share that we've received a cease and desist from Nintendo of America Incorporation to cancel our upcoming online event. We were informed we do not have permission to host or broadcast the event, primarily due to the usage of Slippy. Sadly, all our competitions are affected. We are forced to comply with the order and cancel the Big House Online for both Melee and Ultimate. Refund information will be sent shortly. We apologize to all those impacted. So, yeah, they basically fucking shut down a tournament for a fighting game. Reminder, a lot of these fighting games, you know, not just fighting games, but games like Fortnite, games like Call of Duty Warzone, they fucking rely on a lot of these events. You need to be running events constantly if you want these games to stay anywhere in the user limelight. It's these events that spikes the shit out of Twitch TV viewership for these games, promptly adding to more sales, promptly adding to more relevancy. This is why tournaments are really important. They don't just bring communities together, they're good for business. Now, Nintendo basically has responded by saying, Nintendo appreciates the love and dedication of... No, you fucking don't. We're going to skip this PR shit until we get to... What is it? Unfortunately, the upcoming Big House tournament announced plans to host an online tournament for Super Smash Bros. Melee that requires use of illegally copied versions of the game in conjunction with a mod called Slippy during their online event. Now, I can understand they don't want the mod Slippy being used, but realistically, how is this violating the trademark and copyrights of the game? You're not selling Melee. You're not doing anything with it. Melee doesn't exist on the Switch and runs online. No. The only way to play Melee is like this. They are not actually selling the game anymore. This shouldn't fucking financially affect Nintendo. And if you think it does, you're actually fucking wrong. Nintendo cannot condone or allow piracy of its intellectual property. If it was full-on piracy, sure, I could understand. But I had to be pretty fucking sure that a tournament that's organizing the game is using individual licenses and just running them under emulation so they can play it online with people. That's the only way that I can fucking assume this at all. Which I'm pretty sure an organization as big and well-funded as this was going to do it anyways. That's how you do it. That's how you legally would do any tournament. So fuck off, Nintendo, with any of that shit. They didn't care about this mod. They didn't care about anything. This is just Nintendo being fucking old school. Nintendo hates the people that have put it where it's at. And let me continue on. I could end the video right here, right now, and that pretty much would be it. But you know what? Let's just take a fucking history lesson, okay? Let's just go back in time to Nintendo's bullshit. Nintendo, if you go back just years ago, not even a long time, all the way back to like 2015, not even too long, 5 fucking years ago, there was talks of Nintendo's YouTube multi-channel network. Nintendo's multi-channel network is a fucking relic. Multi-channel networks don't really even exist anymore unless they're, literally designed for the sole reason of actually helping YouTubers. They engage with a small subset of popular YouTubers. They're more of like managers or branding networks, if you will. But if you look at Nintendo's MCN over here, the actual creators for Nintendo games fucking warned you against it, right? Nintendo's creator control program, avoid the MCN at all costs. The reason why is that he actually listed to something called the Nintendo Whitelist. If you don't know what the fuck a Nintendo Whitelist is, if you go to their website, it doesn't exist anymore. That is, until you fucking bring up the Wayback Machine and you look at what they have. This is a list of games that if you were in their YouTube MCN, you could only fucking play Nintendo games. So let's say you were a gaming channel, right? And like Assassin's Creed Valhalla comes out, or Cyberpunk 2077, and you were in their MCN. They were so fucking brazen that they said, listen, you can only stream our games? Fuck anything else. Tremendously hurting any YouTube gaming channel if they were out there. This network was so bad, I heard even their pay was dog shit. They were literally giving creator checks out like it was fucking pocket money. It was just dog shit. Like, look at this list. It's all Nintendo games. Up until like 2018, they wanted you to play ARMS, 1-2 Switch, Star Fox Zero, Yoshi's New Island, Mario Party Star Rush, Fluidity Spin Cycle, bro, it was such a restricted network that I was actually fucking surprised they didn't even fucking give these games out for free to the creators that they signed up in the fucking first place. I mean, if you're gonna get fisted this hard for YouTube stuff, Nintendo, at least give them some relief, right? Now, this might be a small thing. Of course it is. It's a small thing. YouTube content creators are very, like, the population of creator to actual people that watch is very small. This is a very first world issue, and quite honestly, most creators in the sphere just didn't even fucking bother making Nintendo content at all. I mean, if this is the deal with the devil you have to make, you might as well not fucking do it at all. Now, fan games are another thing that Nintendo absolutely despises a lot, and this is even shittier in my opinion. Now, fan games, a lot of companies, you'll face some cease and desist, and I think most Japanese companies have a pretty back-ass fucking way of looking at it. I know that way back in the day, there was a game called Chrono Resurrection that I was super excited for years ago, even before my YouTube channel, that was completely cease and desisted by Square Enix. It kind of looked like a PS2 remake of Chrono Trigger, which is one of my favorite JRPGs ever. Square Enix cease and desisted it, whatever. Nothing happened with the Chrono Trigger franchise afterwards. They fucking re-released the game on Steam and iPhone. That's the fucking extent of it. That said, though, it wasn't just Square Enix. Nintendo is one of the biggest offenders for this kind of stuff, too. And Nintendo has the biggest fans for this shit. But just going on the last point, if you look at companies like Microsoft that actually have a clause that talk about, you know, like fan games or whatever, I think it's a third-party game like clause or whatever. If I can throw it up on the screen, I actually will. But effectively, Microsoft, in rare cases, for example, when Halo Online was a thing by the El Dorito team, what Microsoft did was fucking hammer that down immediately. But when it comes to most fan games like Halo SPV3, Microsoft is okay with it. They don't cease and desist. They actually don't care at all because Microsoft understands that these games aren't going to cannibalize on the sales of actual Halo games. If anything, they spread awareness. They're a good faith sign of fans to show how much they support the actual franchise as a whole. And ultimately, Microsoft and most companies see this shit as a net positive. Nintendo, on the other hand, has had multiple fucking homicides of fan games. Nintendo asked us to remove the site for copyright infringement. I guess Zelda 30 Tribute was a little too pixel perfect. We're sad about that, but we get it. We started this project because we love Nintendo and the joy they have given us throughout the years. From the start of development, we knew this result could happen. They gave a shit so much about this project, right? That literally, they went into this knowing they would eventually have to face the day Nintendo would fuck them in the ass, but they still went through with it, released it, and for a short while this was up there. They had their game out, Nintendo shut it down. They could have easily left this shit up because they weren't profiting off it, completely fucking free to play. It's not like they're selling the original Zelda in any real capacity, unless you count the Nintendo Switch subscription service, but I'm not gonna fucking go there. I'm not gonna get into that. This is something that is so just out there. It's so insane that I don't get it. But let's go to the next one. Now, Super Mario 64 Unreal Engine was another recent project that Nintendo pretty much fucking hand-slapped within days of its release, if not an actual day. If you don't know this, people actually recreated Super Mario 64 in Unreal Engine. This basically allowed us to actually have frame rates higher than fucking 10 and be able to play the game in 60 frames, have a little bit of ultra wide, basically have it modernized up to the point where it would run on modern hardware, no problem. Now, here's some screenshots of the actual game with some fucking ray tracing injected into it, and it looks pretty damn good. Like at this point, actual like lighting somewhat reflects better. You can see reflections of this object properly bouncing off of Metal Mario in this case. Like, ladies and gentlemen, fans were going crazy. They had upgraded a game that was so old to the point where now it could support faux ray tracing was kind of insane. Nintendo shuts that down. They don't care. But you know what? The worst part is, not only was Super Mario 64 shut down, but then they re-released Super Mario 64, again, temporarily on Nintendo Switch, right? Because remember, in like March, you're not going to be able to buy Super Mario 3D All-Stars digitally or physically. But guess what? Not only did they do that, they gave us an inferior Switch version that wasn't even fucking widescreen, didn't even have 60 fucking frames per second, and didn't even have inverted camera controls on launch. Literally, Nintendo could not give a shit. They actually could have shat on a Nintendo Switch cartridge and given us a better fucking port of these games. They literally will take the idea from their fans, which is okay, but then they'll not only destroy the better product, they'll make a shitty product and sell it. And the problem is, a good chunk of the Nintendo fans are just gonna fucking buy this shit. Because, I don't know, they've got some problems, I guess. Maybe. Pokemon Uranium was another fan game that was actually decimated by Nintendo's legal team. It had about like 160 something new Pokemon, handmade, whatnot, for this whole game. New regions, new story, new everything. Really, really solid RPG Maker version of a fan-made Pokemon game. Nintendo shuts it fucking down. And then not only do they shut it down, but then Game Freak gets even fucking lazier and releases Pokemon Sword and Shield, which you know is going to come out anyways, but they half-ass that. And then they get rid of the actual better product, in my opinion, whenever they want. It's just literally some of the dumbest things that you're going to see. To get this game, you literally have to go through other versions, you have to go through other sites, because the official website has been ceased and desisted. They can't re-release this game at all. Oh, but wait, we're not done. We have a whole fucking list of this shit to go through. Another Metroid 2 remake? You remember that one? The really good Metroid 2 fucking remake that had the visual style of the SNES GBA games? Really good title? Yeah, they took it down, but hey, at least in this case, Nintendo actually did fucking remake the game for 3DS in a very proper way too. So this, even though it's shitty, probably had Nintendo do the best possible outcome for it. 1 out of 4. Congratulations. 25% fucking success rate, ladies and gentlemen. God damn. Hey, you guys remember Mario Royale by any chance? Yeah, that game that basically someone made in a Flash title back when the Battle Royale wave was really fucking trending, still kind of is. Yeah, Nintendo took that, pretty much made their own Battle Royale, which admittedly is good. So I'm going to bump that 25% success rate. Yeah, actually, I'm going to bump it down, maybe down to like a 20%. Nintendo succeeded it a little bit. You know, they definitely did some good out of it, for sure. And listen, I'm not saying that they owe any of these people anything, but Nintendo has a pretty awesome track record of not just shutting down and DMCAing titles, but then conveniently re-releasing them on their own for profit later on, which again is well within their fucking right too. But then why do you have to cannibalize on the audience that has made you like this? It doesn't bode well. If anything, it diminishes people from doing any of this. Nintendo was not losing sales through any of these fan games at all. If anything, it was piquing interest for their titles. Anytime Nintendo did this, it always led to negative attention. The only people defending it are the people that believe they're on Nintendo's fucking payroll, but they're actually not. But let's not go out of the way and say that everything is okay. Hey, even just now, Hyrule Warriors came out, and Nintendo decided to DMCA the fuck out of people, even on release date for a game. Admittedly, these are only 48-hour temporary bans, not the fucking worst, but why? Tons of games come out before Street Date. I've played games multiple times before Street Dates, even streamed them, even shown video footage of them. And you know what most game publishers do? They don't fucking care. Unless you're showing the ending of a game or anything. But in this case, when people are showing the first hour to 2 hours, most publishers don't even fucking care. It's good advertising. If anything, it's going to make your game peak in stream viewership, which ultimately leads to more fucking sales. But hey, every company's different. But regardless, why they didn't tell people this anytime before, why this had to be done now, all of a sudden, is beyond me. Nintendo cannibalizes on its audience so fucking much, and it's a repetitive process. It's not going to end today. It's not going to end tomorrow. It's not going to end ever. This is just something that I want people to be more aware of and not defend, because this is indefensible behavior. This is really shitty behavior, and it should be treated as such. It should be talked about as such. So ladies and gentlemen, this video has gone on long enough. I just want to top it all off. This started off as something that was basically going to cover the Nintendo DMCA rabbit hole, but you know what? I don't want to just make videos where I cover that one topic and that being it, because Nintendo deserves far more than just one mention. No, Nintendo is a company that's guilty of a lot worse, and Nintendo's shitty behavior is something that's been happening every single fucking year over and over and over again. And every time something shitty happens out of Nintendo, the way they treat their fans, because listen, Nintendo does a lot of good for gaming. They make some really good titles, but they also make some really dumb mistakes. And it feels like every time I see a dumb fucking mistake, Nintendo, all right, everyone yells about it for a fucking week or two, they forget about it, and something happens again, and it's the same fucking uproar. When really, this is Nintendo's shitty behavior that has happened with utmost consistency as time has gone on for years on fucking end. Nintendo is so late to touch anything related to online content creations and the community that basically encapsulates it, especially when it comes to competitive games like this and whatnot too, which rely on competition, which rely on streaming to maintain relevancy and maintain a community, and especially in a world right now where we need the most that we can to basically offset our attention off of the shit we have to look at in the real world over and over and over again. It just comes across as really fucking shitty and bitter and whatnot. And Nintendo's bullshit PR statements are something that maybe if you're a fucking man-child will consistently accept and defend over and over and over again. But for those people that have a fucking brain cell left and actually care about anything fair and anything logical regarding this company and comparing it to any other game publisher and developer out there, Nintendo needs to be looked at with a much more fucking, a harsh light in this case. But ladies and gentlemen, that's all I really have to say. Alright, Nintendo pisses me off. Nintendo hates you. That's really the fucking gist of it. This is me, Mutahar, and I am out.